I'm on the board of CECA, which is the Connecticut Computer Education Association. At my school, we have students, a lot of students, more than you'd think for Newtown, who don't have access to a device at home, a computer or the internet. So what I do is I solicit donations from the community and from businesses and my friends and family, and I give them to what's called TeachTech. It's our high school computer program, and what they do is computer repair. And so they refurbish the computers for us, and then I give them to students who are in need. So it's a small program. It's we've only done about 10 so far, but it's really helpful for kids to have devices. I'm not a computer science major or math major. My thesis was on the role of the fallen woman in the mid-19th century Victorian novel. So I'm coming at this from a completely different perspective than many teachers. COSIN, do you know about COSIN? It's a great organization. Bless you. If you haven't checked them out, they're like the consortium of school networking, and I'm on their emerging technologies board because I love learning about the next thing, even if I can't get it for my students. Of course, you've been introduced to my children, Billy and Bat. I work with the state on the CS Advisory Council, so I'm helping Connecticut write the plan to implement computer science education into the state. And that involves so many things, and the part that I'm most interested in is curriculum. But they are talking about certification and all sorts of things. I used to be a crime reporter. I wanted to get paid to write, and that was my idea. I thought I could be like Jack London or something. And then I learned, journalism. I can't really pay any bills on $17,000 a year. It was hard. I'm a Google certified trainer, and as my husband likes to make fun of me, I really am a big fan of Star Trek.
Which one?
You know what? I like the new one, but my all-time favorite is the one with Captain Janeway, Voyager.
Oh, Voyager. Yeah.
I like it, girl, leader. I don't know. I love Star Trek. Are you a fan?
Yeah, I like it. I grew up with the original.
Oh, good.
But I think it was it the late 80s or no, maybe the 90s when Next Generation came out?
Yeah. That just captivated my interest.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I'm watching him do this here. I don't know if you've seen Star Trek with Picard. They were having these. They didn't have this.
No.
In the show, they did.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of
they
thing.
influenced a lot of technology. At least I would suspect.
And just like the phones. I mean,
Yeah.
they call it the tricorder, but that was a flip phone back then.
So I would love to know about you guys. Like, why are you teaching computer science? Did someone say, we have to teach this, it's you? Or are you like interested in it?
Actually, that's how it began. Dr. Heidi's heard me talking to a coworker that I used to work for United Technologies, and I used to check the engineer's work. And I did programming back then, and once she heard that, she wanted me to head up the program. And I told her, that was so many years ago. What they do now is very different.
Yeah.
But she says, no, you're the person, and so I've had to learn a lot of new things. And so
you see what Little Scientist is?
Or? Little Science is an organization. It's 26 years old, and we do science. Hands-on science, that's what we're known for. We're next generation standard ready. We were ready 26 years ago, and we work with kids from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade, all sorts of science programs. The newest thing we're adding obviously is the coding.
Computer science.
Yes, but we go throughout the state. We're in Newtown, we've been in Newtown, we're in Sandy Hook, Naugatuck, all over different places, licensed in Korea, Indonesia. Do stuff in North Carolina, all over.
So you go into a school and do a unit with them?
We'll do a unit, or we will do a PD. We'll take over the class. We'll do a PD for the staff in science, because most of the teachers don't have much knowledge in science. Or we may come during the middle of the day, and just do a science. The teacher steps aside, and we'll do science, hands-on science with the kids. Yeah. And then we do that after school, and week assemblies now also.
So how about you? Do you mind sharing, how did you end up or doing computer science?
My first half of my career was in corporate tech, technology, doing different things, like training in technology. I kept trying to get out of technology, but in 2005, I decided to get an elementary certification. And then I was in Nevada, and then we moved to Connecticut. Did an elementary teaching job until I found one that involved technology. That's what I do.
Neat. Thank you. And how about you? How'd you get involved?
So I teach science to 7th and 8th graders. So I'm trying to, we don't have any, we lost our tech teacher a while ago. We don't have engineering, or like we used to have a separate engineer, we used to have a separate tech person. And so now we're sort of involved with just trying to integrate it into my course.
That's great.
Or I'm trying to. I'm trying to see what I can do in 2-3 week units. Sort of.
I have some resources for you. We'll
Yeah.
connect, I'll email you some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the models that the state of Connecticut is looking at. Their ideal model is to have a standalone class of computer science, and we're talking about just middle school, and then at the same time integrate computer science into every subject. So that's their dream, as it were. And of course, I don't know how realistic it is, but all right, so let's move on. So to tell you a little bit about what it looks like at my school, I have about 200 students a quarter, more or less. We meet 2 times a week for about 8 to 10 weeks. Students often get pulled for testing or to meet with a counselor. This year is I have the first graders who were in the tragedy at our school, so a lot of needs are met by pulling them out of our class, I understand. And then about 20% of my time is dedicated to computer science. Try to do more and layer it in, but that's where I am right now. So I think we kind of covered what does it look like at your school. You're a science teacher and you're trying to integrate it into small bites. And I know you do something completely different, but you're trying to integrate it into your program, right? What does it look like at your school? Do you have a class that meets every day, or how does that work?
I'm at a pre-K through 8 school, and I teach K through 5 computer classes. So I see each class every 4 or 5 days, depending on the rotation. We don't do anything with middle school right now.
Oh, okay.
So I see the elementary students.
Okay.
But I want to propose something for middle school, and if it's an enrichment thing,
Yeah,
a
of
short
course.
period or something.
That's a great idea. And there's so many enrichment activities. Yesterday we did, our district did this coding competition, the cyber robotics coding competition. It was free. So I like free. And it was just an enrichment activity. The school didn't, we couldn't afford a bus. Parents had to drive the kids. There was no stipend, which I'm not about the money, I did it for the kids. But some kids didn't have computers, so I had to find them computers so they could work on it at home. But they loved it, and so enrichment is a great strategy. And we went third, which was very surprising. So I thought I'd talk about a few resources that are out there that you may not have heard of. So the first one is called Bitsbox. Has anyone heard of Bitsbox? It's one of my favorites. It's free. So that's awesome. This company was on Shark Tank. And so I show my students the clip of Shark Tank. They are a subscription-based company, but you do not need to purchase anything to use it in your classroom. You do have to work to get them to sign on the Student Data Privacy Act, which I'm still in the process of. But let me show you really quickly how it works and why I like it. So students go to the website, and it very quickly shows them how to make a very simple app using JavaScript. So what I tell them is, hey, this is your tablet. This is where you code in your program. And the very first couple of programs they do, it's a recipe. So I say, okay, everybody, if I type in Phil, parentheses, single quote marks, red, and hit the play button, what will happen to my screen? Ooh. So what will happen to my screen? Do you guys have any idea?
It's gonna fill with red.
Yes. So just for the sake of time, I copied and pasted it. Now I teach them, oh, okay, well, let's say you don't like red. What's your favorite color? And I get all sorts of colors. And I say, my favorite color is every color. I like rainbow. So if I type in rainbow and hit the play button, it gives Phil a rainbow. And we talk about, okay, so Phil is like a background. And then the next step, introducing them to the idea of variables and what a variable is. So I say, when I hit the play button, what's going to happen? Well, someone always says that a piece of pie is going to show up on the screen. And I try to relate it to math a little bit, but a variable in math is different than a variable in computer science. So basically I say we're telling the computer that the letter P is a stamp or a piece of clip art. It stands for pie. So when we hit the play button, a piece of pie should show up. And it does. And this is the part that they love. The idea of a dot command is say to them, okay, let's look at this. The letter P dot tap, what does that mean? What does it mean?
The pie's gonna explode.
Yeah, when you tap it, the pie's gonna explode. How does the computer know that the pie should explode? Oh, well, we told the computer that P is the stamp. So it's just a really neat, short introductory tool to computer programming. They like it. I like it because it's free and it's simple, and I can kind of guide them. They do have lessons based on content, so math, science, English, that sort of stuff. And then what they like to do is they like to go right here for the resources, and you can find stamps to all sorts of things. People, places, the fills, they can add sounds, songs, commands. So, and then they always end their guided lessons with a little challenge. So try changing the pie to a cupcake. If you click here, they can copy the link, and this quote-unquote app can be played on any device that has access to the internet. So some students might have a parent that has a phone, or they could go to the library and play with one of the iPads that they have there and tap it and see it happen on the screen. So it's a fun thing. They can email it. There's a lot more to it, but that's just one resource. And what's nice is that they're so teacher-friendly. I have emailed them, and they've sent me free books and free resources. In fact, I brought some that they sent a while back. It's called their app sampler book. But if you want more, I have so many free things. I'm happy to email you and give you PDFs of code. But the best thing is that once they understand the fundamentals, then they start playing with it and tweaking it and making it their own, and they make the most amazing things. So I often just say, okay guys, you need to show me that your app knows what a variable is, and you need to show me that your app can do a loop, but what you make is up to you. And so
I
I
just
thought
see
it
what
was
it
a
looks,
fun tool.
if I take that,
Yeah,
take it,
it'll
this
zap it
is
to
what
your
it looks.
gadget. Yep.
yeah.
You might do better on like zapping it from this
Okay,
monitor. I don't know if it'll work, but give it a try.
I'm trying to think of it knows.
What's this do right here when you?
So, oh, I didn't even show you. Yeah. So when you tap on the pie, it explodes.
No, the thing, the symbol that you had right there, zap
Oh.
gadget.
So it puts it on any device.
That's what that does.
Yeah.
It's basically like a web address,
It's a web address.
but you can,
You use your camera and your cell phone, and it takes you right to the app.
Okay.
so like, I made a printed out thing, you can take you to a web, you can make any web address have it.
It does. It knows.
Yeah, and you can make one, so this generates it.
And I have them, I use Google Classroom, so I have them turn in the link to me, and I will share it with the parents. So it's kind of a fun thing to teach computer science
In
skills.
what grade do you use this app thing?
Oh, yeah,
What's
I
the
do this
youngest
with
grade?
my 7th graders and 8th graders. But what I do is I offer, when I teach computer science, I offer a whole variety of activities and let them choose. So it's important that they learn the concepts, but this might be too advanced for some students.
Yeah, I noticed because
Yeah.
in code it's
Yeah.
6th grade and up if they have the background.
Exactly. So if they're coming to me with a very tiny bit of scratch. So if there is a student who's more advanced, they might do this, but then I also say, hey guys, there's code.org, and I explain all different levels and let them choose it. Some of the students who might have special needs, I might do something a little bit different. Like I got a grant to get this, it's called the Osmo. And you need an iPad, so I'm constantly borrowing iPads. But basically, it's a programming that's very kinesthetic. So the student takes these blocks, and the goal is to get the character Obby to the apples. So this block means move forward, and you put it together with the number of times you want him to move, and then you hit the play button, and then he moves forward. And so even students who are very advanced, there's no stigma associated with this. They'll want to use this, even though I might offer it initially to a student who's more kinesthetically inclined or struggles with things. So that's kind of what I do. I work really hard to get stuff for free and
What's the name of that thing?
This is called the Osmo. It was invented by 2 parents who worked from Google. Thank you, my helper. And they worked for Google, and they just released a version that can be used on Kindles. Thank God, because you can get Kindles for about $38 for a Kindle Fire, depending on when you buy it. So the only problem is that they haven't yet released the coding program with the Kindles. So they have Osmo has other learning activities, but
not this one with the chip.
not yet. I was told in the spring. And I've been asking, can I please have a free one to demo in my classroom? I promise I'll tweet about it, whenever I can do to get something.
So the
That will
government
help.
doesn't give grants for this new area that we're behind on, I think, right? There's not much government money to help support.
Well, there was actually one I can email you that at the last Connecticut, the Computer Science Advisory Council meeting was at, there was a huge grant, and I can forward it to you if you want.
Okay, yes.
It's,
Because I need to get, well, there's some
you need
things I
some
need
funding.
to,
Yeah, we'll connect. Code Monkey is another one that I really enjoy. I've used this with both 7th and 8th grade. It is not free. I think a teacher account is $60 a year. I got a special where it was $39 maybe for some crazy thing, and I purchased it myself because it does a wonderful job of teaching very basic text-based programming. I'll show you some block-based ones, but let me just log in. What I love about it is that my hope is always that I raise the bar and students will reach for it. What I love is that it doesn't matter what level a student is on, this starts at the very beginning of their journey so they can get it. It might get a little bit more complicated, and then we might move to something else if we need to. But usually my time constraints are such that I'm trying to introduce them to these basic skills, and then it's time, unfortunately, to move on to some other topic. But let me just see if I can show you the first level. So with that teacher account I talked to you about, it gives you access to the first 30 levels. For your students, there are so many levels. But let's say I just go to maybe level 3. Okay, so your goal is always to get this monkey to find the banana, because in the beginning there's an animation about how an ape took it away from him. So it's teaching you very basic commands, like turn left and step 12. And so the monkey would turn left and then go 12 steps to catch the banana. And the students can use a ruler to measure it. And if they hit run, of course, oh no, he didn't get to the banana. So it will tell them, what do you need to do? You need to turn right. my biggest challenge is getting the students to actually read the hints. Because they'll do it over and over and say, oh, it doesn't work. And I'll say, okay, let's stop. You can read. Let's look what it says. So the idea of perseverance is big in my classroom. So
I think it
let's
is with
try.
all the kids,
Yeah.
they don't have patience. And,
They
yeah.
don't. So they try to get 3 stars, and that's like, if they get 3 stars, it's a huge achievement for them. And so it's another resource, it's another tool for your toolbox. I would say the only drawback is that it does charge you if you want to do it. So I think it's $49 now.
Does it make student accounts and all that?
It does all that, and they are compliant with the Student Data Privacy Act. So you're safe there as long as you get your district to sign the agreement.
Right.
So I wanted to show you resources that perhaps you hadn't heard of, because you know, I was going to cover App Inventor and Scratch and Code.org, but then they covered them so much. So Code Combat is something that is definitely for that student who's more advanced. It is free, which I love. You can pay for it, but the first 30 levels are free, and that's all the time I have for it.
If you pay for it, does it give you, if you, as a teacher, do you get to have the students have accounts under you?
Yes, and that's free.
Okay.
So
When you
you
said it
can
was how much was it?
This Code Combat, I don't know.
After the first 3 levels.
I haven't.
I have
After
to check it
the
out. I have that.
Code Monkey is the first 30 levels are free. The Code Combat is the same thing. I think it's the first 35 or so levels. It's 42. So your idea, the goal is to get through out of the dungeon, and that is completely free for you and your students. You can create an account.
Yeah, I've used it, but I didn't know the cost of it after that.
Yeah. I would have to get back to you.
I'll look it up. I can find it.
It's not as cost prohibitive as I thought. If your school's a subscription to BrainPop, they do have this in there.
Oh, it is? It's in there?
Yeah. So what's nice about this is that it tells the kids what they're learning, basic syntax. And I do have to explain what the idea of syntax is. When they hit play, they can choose their hero, girl or a boy, and how it looks, and then the language. So those kids who are more advanced will know what Python is, and they'll say, oh, I want to do Python. And then students who maybe have no experience probably would not recommend this for them because it is text-based. But I say CoffeeScript because it's just like JavaScript, but it's simplified. So if I hit CoffeeScript and hit next, then we have to equip our hero with shoes, which give her different skills. Her skill set now is once we equip her with shoes, she can move down, left, right, or up. So I'm going to equip her and then hit play. And there's a lot of fun sound effects, and the idea of maybe a little coding game is kind of fun to some students. So they tell you the goals here. You want to avoid the spikes and collect the gem. And you're going to guide your hero to this big gem here by typing the code. So it gives them hints. For example, it's kind of walking me through the first level. And a lot of times students just hit escape. They don't care. They just want to start. So one thing that's nice about this program is that once I've explained all the basics, what is hero and that sort of stuff, then you can do hero, right? And if a student is not good at typing or they hate typing, the commands available pop up. So we know that our hero has to move right. So which way should our hero move next? We have to get to the gem.
Where is it?
The hero starts here, and she moved right here.
Oh, I see.
So where should she go next?
Is she facing, which way is she facing?
She's facing this way, but our only commands are to move up, down, left, or right.
Okay, I know. I'm glad I'm saying.
No, you don't.
I know.
So did I hear someone say move down? Yeah. So our hero is going to move down, and then once our hero moves down this way, she should move. Yeah. So we type in hero, and she'll move right, And we'll hit run and see what happens. And students really enjoy this. Like the idea of, oh, I did it and I get experience points and that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
again, this is for the sort of student who maybe comes into class with a little knowledge, you know, or is really gung-ho. I would recommend it for beginners. Let's see, CoSpaces is new to me this year. They do offer free accounts for teachers and students. The only issue with that is that they limit a few features. I have not found any issues with limiting features, but if you go through their teacher training thing, they give you a free pro account. That's how I get a lot of stuff. I go through their training or mostly go through the training and then be what they call an ambassador. I don't get any compensation, but sometimes I'll get a free account. This is really new to me. It's virtual reality, and I have not figured out the why yet. How is this going to impact student learning? I'm still at the process of what is it, how do I use it? So I've had students very eager to create virtual reality, and what this does is create a very simple virtual reality quote-unquote app, so a web-based thing. So one of my students, Julio, made a maze. I have Google Cardboard glasses that I got at a conference. You can make your own if you want to order from Amazon. I've seen them as low as $2.99. But you can wear the glasses, and then you can walk your way through the maze with your glasses. But it doesn't. The idea of glasses, it doesn't matter. It's all created on the computer. So he programmed this little maze, and so you have to find your way through the maze to find the Grinch. And what I like about CoSpaces is that it's partially designing stuff and partially coding. So if I go back here and go to code, it is the same thing as Scratch or, you know, App Inventor. It's block-based, click and drag. So right now he coded this little dog so that when we hit the play button, the dog is going to think, for 2 seconds, and that will just show a little, you know, bubble of his thought process. And that's about as far as I've got with CoSpaces. This right now, I do a Genius Hour project, so I have students, they're like, oh, I want to make a virtual reality app. And I'll say, well, why don't you try CoSpaces and teach me what you learned? And that's how I approach it.
Can you just click on the physics things?
Yes,
down
of
below?
course, yeah.
I'm just curious what's in.
Yes, there's lots of things. They have wonderful YouTube tutorials. I watched one about physics the other day. YouTube's not allowed in our school, so it's tough. I have to contact CoSpaces and say, may I please have a downloaded copy of your video and put it on my Google Drive for my kids. Like, it's hard work these days to be a computer science teacher, you know. So yeah, here's a quick look at the physics of it. It's just fun. If it's something you're interested in and you understand block-based programming, then you'll enjoy playing around with it. So moving on, I think the other resources have been covered, Scratch and code.org and App Inventor. Scratch, I would say, is just perfect for the beginner. It's just perfect, and it's free. And there's so many resources out there to teach you ready-made curriculum. Same with code.org. What I love about code.org is that there's so many choices for students. So there are options for students who want to do text-based programming, and then there are options for students who want to do block-based.
I actually didn't go to that workshop, so I don't know what kind of time you use.
Oh, sure. Do you
don't
want
mind? I would love just to your level.
Have you, yeah.
Your sort of how you used it.
Oh,
You just do the individual puzzles? Is that kind of how you have to do it? Or because there's also courses they can.
There are also, there's also pre-written curriculum. I cannot do that given my time constraints.
Yeah.
People who do it love it. Have you done code.org?
Yeah, I use it.
I have not used their curriculum.
So the way that I enable it is that I create classes, and then I would assign students to a specific activity based on their skill level or their interest. The Hour of Code dance party activity is new, so I assigned it to everyone. And I said, hey, we're going to beta test this. And they love the idea of being beta testers. For example, here's my, I have a lot of classes. So the dance party I did with the 7th grade class. And I can show you 2 aspects. The first is what you see as a teacher. So you see the lesson, and you'll see student progress. So most of my students have completed each level, and with a perfect score.
So there's a sort of assessment, or there's some measure of whether they're doing it right now.
Yes, there is. And it's very simple too. If you look down here, it'll tell you how it assesses. So if the student completed the level perfectly, they get a dark green. And if they've done it like they've completed it and it worked, but it's not as efficient or concise, it'll give them a light green. And I just challenge my students. I say, all right, our whole class, we're going to get all dark greens here. And if you get a light green, do it again if you want to, because I don't penalize them at all for anything. Really, if they're trying, they're going to get credit for doing the work. And then I do that element of gamification, and I write a scoreboard on the board with different classes. And my period 3 class, they got this many points, and so they like that aspect of it. There's a lot more to code.org. There's unplugged activities. There's student videos. Essentially, I'll just give you, this is student's name is Aiden, and this is what, all right, I can't do that, hang on. I'll show you what it looks like. So with the dance party, which has been super popular because it allows music, it shows a video. And what's nice is that if you don't have YouTube, they allow you to download their videos and to play them, upload them onto your Google Classroom or whatever you need. But it gives them an introductory video, and I say to them, yes, you have to watch it. The reason why is that it explains stuff.
Yeah.
And after that, it walks them through what to do. So it's Scratch, it's block based. So you want to drag this block to your program. And I think I already did it, so I'm going to delete it. And then you hit run. And it lets them choose what song they'd like to play while their dancer is dancing. And it has popular music.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff that they like. The only thing that's tricky is that sometimes my students get ahead and they want to do something a little more advanced, and it won't let them move ahead simply because it wants them to just do this one thing. So if I have a student who's like, oh cool, I'm going to have a cat, but then I also want to add, another cat, and I want to make it and rename it and that sort of stuff. And if they hit play, it won't necessarily allow them to move on. That is frustrating. But there's so much. I would encourage you to explore code.org. It's a great resource. It's well done. So those are my 6 resources. There's so many out there. Hands-on resources that I have. I talked about the Osmo. Bloxels is kind of interesting. It's become a little more popular. I got a kit on sale for $16.99. I paid for it myself, but like that I can do. And what they do is, and I'm sorry, I forgot to bring it. Students have a blank board with these little physical blocks, and they put it on the board to make a design. But each block represents a different thing, and their goal is to create a platform-based game, like Super Mario Brothers, or Super Mario when we were kids, if you played Mario. So the green blocks, as you can kind of see from the picture, those are terrain. Gold blocks, yellow blocks are gold, blue blocks are water, that sort of stuff. So for the sort of student, again, who's kinesthetic, maybe wants to learn computer science, but wants to make a game, that's their dream. And you've got 4 classes, and there's just no way. Bloxels is great because I let them take it home, and I say, hey, take this home, and do this, and if they have, and then when they come back, if they have access at home, it helps. There is a little app that you kind of like snap it through the app, and it imports it into their program. So the difficulty there is that I have many students who don't have devices at home, cell phones or iPads. So, and they bring it. Not supposed to. But what are you going to do? These are kids. I want them to learn it. And if they're passionate, that's what I'm going to do. I have had no trouble with that, but keep it on the, because I'm not supposed to. If you haven't heard of the Ozobot, those are cool. I was able to get a buy one, get one free sale for $30. I think now they're like $60. But that was a long time ago. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm sorry I forgot it. What I like about that is that it's a little robot, and basically the robot moves on a line that you draw on a piece of paper in black ink. So it's very hands-on. So I might have a piece of paper and draw a circle, and if I put the bot on it, it'll follow my path. But that's kind of boring. So the Ozobot comes with a list of codes. And so one code would be red, green, red, green. So then I get stickers or markers, which are affordable, and I have them draw the black line, red, green, and then the bot will do what has been assigned to those colors, which happens to be my favorite code, tornado. So the bot turns purple and spins around, and that's, you know, it's a great way to teach them really basics of computer science, but in a hands-on way. You know, and again, about money, I contact companies all the time. I go to LinkedIn, I go to Twitter, head to the CEOs, and hey, I really want to try this out. And could I do it? I'll post something about it on a blog, and you know, and you'd be surprised how often people say yes. It's the only way I really get stuff.
Yeah.
But and the last thing is Qblets. This I got a grant for. Qblets are modular robotics. I think I got it on sale because it was older. It was expensive. It was like $360, I think. But I got a sale and I got a grant through our PTA. And so Qblets are little simple cubes. I mean, each cube has a specific function. This is power. This is a sensor. And then, whoops, and they're magnetic, so they snap together. And they're pretty durable. And then this is a light. So what do you think will happen when I move my hand over the sensor? Yeah. So I always start my students off with that challenge, build a flashlight. And again, I'm not doing this for the whole class. Try my best to personalize it based on student strengths and interests. And I'm so blessed that I've got this kit through a grant. But it's a really fun hands-on thing. Some students, I think they find it challenging to create on their own once, if they haven't been given some sample activities. But once they do, what's neat is that I have these little things, and they came with a kit, and they snap on and they attach to Legos. So I have a few of my son's Legos in my classroom, and they'll make little Lego robots. One drawback that I have noticed is that these ones are the ones that move, right? And they tend to break. I've had to order 2 replacement ones, and luckily they replace them for free. But it's very difficult when you have, oh no, okay, when you have students making something and then it just breaks. So that's an example. I was just told I have 5 minutes, so if you don't mind, let me speed through some other things. I get so caught up in resources, or like, you know, what's out there. So the heart of what I wanted to tell you about was how to choose. For me, honest to God, the biggest thing that comes to my head is, what is the cost? So that's something to consider. Let me hit the back button. The price financially, the price in prep time, the price in instructional time. If I'm going to use it to assess in any way, how am I going to come up with an assessment? And then student buy-in. Of course, students have to learn certain things. But I have tried a few things that have flopped, and every time I try it, they flopped. So I've learned, okay, this is not the best thing to do. Another factor to consider is the comfort level. What sort of skill set do your students have? For example, my 7th period is always full of 7th graders, and I'd say about 60% of them have IEPs and 504s. It's very, I don't have any aides as a Unified Arts class instructor, so I may not offer them that code combat. You know, we may stick to block-based instruction, but then there might be 2 or 3 kids who are really bored by this. I had a parent email me the other week saying, my daughter is really struggling because she feels she knows this already and can you do something more advanced with her? And I said, oh great. So I talked to her and she's doing the same, learning the same concepts, just using a different resource. So, and then the support. If you purchase something or use something for free, do they have curriculum? Do they have lesson plans? Do they have an online community? Because I often feel I'm all alone. I have no department. I've got no department chair. Many people don't know what I do, so I have to find my support elsewhere. Usually it's online or through meeting people like you at conferences. Another factor to consider is what I call credibility. Does it align to standards? And there are 2 standards there are 2 different types of standards that I look at because the state in May adopted the ISTE standards and the CSTA standards. And they kind of align when you look at algorithms. That's one thing that both cover, or algorithmic thinking, I'm pretty sure, or computational thinking, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Student data privacy law is huge. So before I even think about it, I don't rely on my tech director, who is wonderful but crazy busy. I just straight up go to Twitter and tweet to them, are you compliant? Can I use you? You know, before I even think about it. And then do they even like focus on these computer science standards, or are they just fun? Are they just brain candy? And I love brain candy, but I'm learning that students learn better if the resource I use aligns with some sort of basic concept. And this will be available to you, so please don't feel you have to, you know, go through it. So when I'm thinking about what I want to do, I always try to follow kind of a design thinking mindset. I like the idea of, okay, is it realistic for me to do it? Can I sustain it? So cost is a factor in sustaining, but there's other issues. Is it engaging? And then where they collide is innovation. And for me, if teaching becomes boring, if I'm not constantly learning things, I'm not going to do it anymore. So I always encourage everyone to find something, a resource that challenges you, to be creative, to learn something yourself, and to have fun with it. Otherwise, what's the point of being a teacher? There's a lot of bad things about, or you know, things you have to deal with as an instructor. So I always tell people, be innovative, you know, with your choices, and just take risks and jump out there. So another thing to think about when you're implementing something is, what does student success look like to you? So my definition is kind of written here. Is very similar to what we talked about earlier in the morning, where he had us, the speaker had us write on Post-it notes and put them on the wall. So these are the things I always say to students who say, why in the world are we learning this stuff? Well, you may not be a computer scientist, and that's great. You can be whatever you want to be. But in life, you're going to have to work with people, tons of different people who maybe have different ways of doing things. You have to learn how to collaborate. You're going to have to persevere. There are going to be problems that you just can't solve, so you have to keep going. So that's student success and what it looks like to me. I think everyone has their own definition. So I was going to ask you what you felt student success looked like to you. So anyone have any thoughts? What does it mean for your students to be successful in computer science? Does it mean they finish all the levels, or they can apply what they learned to something else? It's a very broad question, but do you have any thoughts about it?
I have sort of an overarching goal.
Yeah.
Because technology changes all the time. Like I tell them, you know, we're learning Google Slides today, but in 5 years, I don't know what you're going to be using, right? So your overarching goal is like to build those skills to figure out how to use what you're looking at.
That's really smart.
So if you can use word processing or presentation software, you can figure out how to use any other similar tool.
That's great.
But I also tell them, like, you're gonna have to learn something, figure out how to use something, and no one's gonna be here to teach you. So you gotta just try it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a huge step for kids. They
It
don't want to
is,
just
it's
try.
scary. It's scary, trying new things, oh my goodness. So I'm gonna swiftly breeze through, these were some ideas I've tried for implementing new resources. Let's see, I always try to avoid front loading, so having them sit while I talk. So the opposite of what I'm doing to you today. I have, are you okay? Okay, all right, you okay? Okay.
Just surprised.
Yes, but plenty of scaffolding for them. I love the website Pear Deck because it's a presentation tool that's interactive. And so I introduce new concepts every once in a while using Pear Deck because then they're not just sitting there listening to me talk. Students, I have them as a coach. I definitely, you know who they are in your classroom. Some students who may not be the smartest or get it, but yet they're so willing to help other people. So I have a class, usually my classes are around 24. I cannot answer every single student's coding problem question. So I make them help each other out. I love to gamify it. That's a big thing people have been talking about. One great resource is Kahoot. It's free. It's a great way to gamify things. And then I'd love them to share. I did a PTA grant last year to get money for books. So there are some students who love reading and they're tactile. And so I just scattered them around my classroom and referenced them from time to time, but just leaving them there has been enough to pique student interest. Another strategy to try is a playlist assignment. You know how I said earlier I like to give students tons of options. So if you open this later and you click on this link, you'll get her article. I don't know if you're familiar with the website called it. It's so great. But this one, quiet please. This one is about a playlist assignment. So it's kind of like a chart, like a music playlist, and they kind of choose what they want to do to show that they've learned the concept. Same thing with a hyperdoc. Have you guys ever heard of hyperdocs?
Yeah.
It's essentially a Google Doc that you create. This one will take you to a template. But the Google Doc, kind of, the one that I do, it's a game board, like Monopoly. And so you offer tons of different options. Students, I'll say, okay guys, choose 3. And do these 3 activities, show me you understand what a loop is, or something like that. So those are some great strategies. I would say for me, my game boards have been more popular than the playlists. But they're great ways to differentiate instruction and address the popular idea of personalized learning, which I think is a little different than differentiation, but that's okay. Another way is to really be flexible. How can you show me what you've learned? So for example, these girls wanted to show me that they understand the idea of looping. And unfortunately, I couldn't get the volume to work, but basically they said what it is, and then they demonstrated it. So, and they do this over and over in the video, and it was their way of showing their program and that they understand looping. So we have so many different types of learning styles. So I've had students make crafts. So the idea of looping, I had a student who loved to crochet, and so she's like, I did the same pattern, Mrs. Smith. I did it over and over and over, you know. So the student ideas for how they want to share are often better than mine. I will say that I give them ideas, but then I'm very open. Like, hey, you want to build a model? You want to use Play-Doh? However, as long as you can show me you've learned it. The last thing I will say is like ask for lots of help. That's what I do. I always tell everyone, I don't know everything. I'm learning. I was a British Lit major. Like, please help me. So parents have started to become some of my biggest supporters because they see STEM and computer science is becoming more important and they want their kids to learn it. You know, different community organizations, I would strongly encourage you to explore the Computer Science Teachers Association and then ISTE. Lots of resources. ISTE has offered a free course in computational thinking that's online. It's great. I'm doing one now on artificial intelligence. Oh, are you in that? It's hard though, isn't it? The time for me, yeah. So you know, communicate. Unfortunately, we live in the world where we're not a core subject. Teachers get cut a lot, and I don't like to, like, broadcast, hey, my students do this. Like, it feels like bragging, like I have to deal with publicity, you know. Every year, there's that little thing in the back of my head that says, you know, you're cutting teachers, so, you know, so I've started to use Seesaw, which is a way to get parents to communicate really well with me, and I share student work. I make little videos and notes and say what we did that week, and it's free. There is a paid version, but it's free. And so communicate with people about what you're doing. Brag. If we ever, as computer science teachers, I think if we ever want to be, you know, taken a little more seriously or have more resources, unfortunately, I think that's part of the job these days, at least in my experience, but not for everyone. Take advantage of any free online stuff, conferences, that sort of stuff, get involved. You'll find so many people. So thank you so much for everything you did. I hope this was helpful.
Very helpful.
Oh, good. I feel like I had so many more like activities for you to do, but then they came in and said 5 minutes, and I thought, oh my gosh. So
Yes. Do you have a card?
I don't have a card, but I'll put this up. I have an email, and also I have a buddy group of middle school computer science teachers, and we're starting like a email list. So you are so welcome to join. I would love for you to join. So that's where it is, and this whole presentation will be on the conference website for you. But that's my email. And if anyone is interested in serving on that computer science council, you'd like to help write curriculum or help Connecticut schools, like it's a state CS implementation plan. I know you're in Massachusetts right now. We need representation from a variety of people, and I think we have a lot of people from Northwest and like Fairfield County, and people from all parts of the state. So if you were an administrator or someone you know would be interested in volunteering, because part of the plan is teacher certification, digital equity and access to resources. And we really need more people involved. So great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Email me anytime.
Nicely done.
Oh,
Really
thank
nice.
you so much.
Very
I
helpful.
hope I didn't talk too much.
No,
Talk a
great.
mile a minute.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Hi.
And I want to
nice
see both
meet
at the same time. I'm
Oh, I
sorry,
know,
so I was trying to
it's
cut them in
okay.
half. But thank you very much.
Shauna,
Yeah,
Rachel.
nice to meet you. You're at Newtown?
Yeah,
Is it the
middle
middle school?
Yeah.
Do you know anyone who was at the high school before?
I do. I know
You
a
do?
few people.
Oh, I worked with, I don't know, Leah Clark who was there a couple years ago. No. Mr. Murray,
Oh, it was Mr. Dr. Arardi.
Arardi was
He
my
retired.
teacher in
He's
high
my
school.
favorite person in the world. Was he a good teacher?
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
What did he
He was a
teach you?
teacher, no, he's my guidance counselor and my soccer coach
Oh, yeah.
in high school.
He
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
so sad when he
Yeah.
died.
Oh, I didn't know he was retired. Wow.
Yeah.
And his wife actually ended up teaching my son in preschool.
Oh my gosh, what a small world.
Oh, my
Yeah.
mom.
That was great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad
Sorry,
I
I missed the
met
first
you.
part, but
Okay.
he did awesome stuff. Can I see this picture of somebody?
It's still recording. It is still recording.
You want to have your